This morning, I'm here to visit with you about the lay of the land and how things are changing for those of us in Cooperative Extension. You know, if we look at what's happened nationally in the past few months, Purdue University purchased a company by the name of Kaplan, and Kaplan is the largest online producer of educational programs. The president of Purdue University stated that they purchased Kaplan because it was only through that purchase that they could obtain the capacity needed to fulfill their land-grant mission of disseminating information to the masses. What about Memphis Meats? Memphis Meats is a company that produces meat in petri dishes. And now they're actually producing larger quantities of that meat, pork, beef, chicken. So you ask, I ask, how is that going to change agriculture in the United States? How is it going to change agriculture nationally? What's it going to do to the livestock industry? You may think it's not going to have a great deal of impact. But if you stop and think about the perfection of that process, including things like taste and quality of meat, once they perfect that process and then start to mass produce it, perhaps through the use of 3D printers, and then perhaps market it through a company like Amazon, who just purchased Whole Foods, will probably have a pretty substantial impact on agriculture. Let's look at the way the population of North Carolina is going to change in the next few years. Over the next 10, maybe 12 years, we're projected to grow by up to 3 million people in this state. And most of those 3 million people are going to settle somewhere between Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and Raleigh, and then perhaps down Interstate 40 towards Wilmington. What happens when we grow by that amount in that small of an area? We increase population density, and what does that do to the way that we deliver our programs to people? What does that do to rural North Carolina and the needs of rural North Carolina? Will we still be able to provide the level of service we need to those two entirely different communities? If you think about the customer experience and the value of the experience, it's something Extension has always had a great deal of pride in, because we believe that we provide the very high level of customer service. But I want to look at a company like McDonald's. 50-some years ago, when I was just a boy, McDonald's was a brand new company, and they hadn't even sold 1 billion hamburgers yet. They were setting the bar for the customer experience at McDonald's because they were the first real fast food restaurant that went national in scope. And because of that, we thought that's the experience that we're looking for. But today, if you look at customer experience, McDonald's ranks somewhere right in the middle of the spectrum. My point is this: it's not necessarily easy to get to the top, but it's even harder to stay there once you get there. And we can't afford to take things for granted in the way that we do business. We're going to have to be sure that we're providing the type of customer experience people are looking for. Research has shown us that 17% of our customers will leave us after one bad experience. An additional 40% will leave after a second bad experience, and then 28% will leave after the third bad customer experience. So in reality, we could lose as much as 85% of our business in a relatively short period of time. But the most telling research, in my opinion, says that 80% of companies that were surveyed believe that they provide superior customer service. However, when you interview the customers of those companies, only 8% of those customers believed that they were receiving superior customer service from those same companies. It gives us something to really think about. And when people have a bad experience, 53% of people will tell their friends and families about that experience. 28% will use Facebook to spread that same word. 14% will use Yelp. 10% will use Twitter. So social media is becoming a large part of the way in which we disseminate information across society, and it spreads news more quickly than we're used to. On the other hand, people who have had a good customer experience with Extension are 9 times more likely to tell friends and family about that experience. They're 8 times more likely to trust Cooperative Extension, and they're 7 times more likely to come back and use our new programs in the future. We have a couple of videos that we'd like to show you that really expound on the impact or the importance of a good customer experience.
Customer experience seems like a simple concept, but people interpret it in many different ways. Hopefully I can clear that up. Let's start with a basic definition. Customer experience is the perception that customers have of their interactions with your organization. The word perception is critical because customer experience is in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what you do as a company or how your employees think about what they do. It's how your customers think and feel about what you do. Interactions is plural for a reason. It's not just about one interaction or a single type of interaction like customer service or sales. Customer experience encompasses all of the interactions with your organization, and it includes everything from TV ads to monthly billing statements. Customers perceive these interactions along 3 dimensions: success, effort, and emotion. They perceive success based on whether or not they're able to achieve what they want to do. They perceive effort based on how easy or hard it is for them to do what they want to do. And their emotion is altered based on how the interactions make them feel. The customer experience that your organization delivers is a reflection of your culture and operating processes. If you don't make changes internally, then any externally focused improvements will be short-lived. That's why companies with great customer experience tend to have more engaged employees, a stronger sense of their brand promises, executives who lead in a purposeful way, and a deeper understanding of their customers.
I want to tell you a couple stories today about customer service, as well as finish up with a vision of what we see for Cooperative Extension with an outstanding customer service model. The first one is, some of you may have heard Dr. Bonanno tell the story about an extension agent who had a customer of ours approach him about help with industrial hemp. And a lot of the growers in the state know that I'm working on industrial hemp, and I'm on the Industrial Hemp Commission, and they've seen me in that role, so they know Extension's involved to some degree. This particular client is one that's not used us before. He's a businessman and a farmer. Came to the Extension office and said he needed a little help with industrial hemp. Unfortunately, he was told that we don't do industrial hemp. He knew a little bit better than that, but he walked away. He came to the next Industrial Hemp Commission and applied for a license and was denied. He was very unhappy because he'd already spent tens of thousands of dollars. Came up to me after the meeting and expressed his anger with me and with the customer service he'd gotten, as well as not getting a license. At the next meeting, things turned out a little better, because what actually happened was I followed up with a couple other agents in counties that were nearby where he had businesses and where he lived and had additional farms. And those agents did a great job of going and meeting with him and talking to him about what he wants to do, what his dreams were, and how they could help him. They couldn't help him a lot technically because they just didn't have the ability at the time, but they made the effort and they reached out. At the next meeting, he came back. He asked for a variance on the licensing rule. He didn't get it, so he was mad again. But he came up to me afterwards, and I was just waiting to get chewed out once again. And he came up, he said, I have to tell you, you know, you actually followed up on my issue, and I really appreciate that. And the agents that came to visit me and talk to me and help me truly seemed concerned. They seemed to know what they were talking about. And I have to tell you, you know, I would have probably never used extension again, but I will now, and I really appreciate all you guys did. And I was blown away. I was getting ready to get chewed out, and it was a very pleasant experience. Another story is one in which I was blessed to get to go to a conference where the owner of Chick-fil-A was speaking and talking about his company and their customer service. It was actually an amazing experience. They even showed us some of their training videos, which I hope that we could emulate at some point. But he talked a lot about the fact that they did not sell, their primary product was not chicken. Their primary product was actually customer service. He said anybody could make our chicken sandwich. He said our waffle fries are just funny looking French fries. What we sell is customer service. And if you've ever been in a Chick-fil-A, you probably have had outstanding customer service and probably a good chicken sandwich, but really great customer service. So I think that was a very good example. Even though we're not selling sandwiches, we're not selling chicken, we're selling educational programs, so to speak, but it still makes a good example of how important customer service really is. So you might say, okay, well, what's in it for us? And I think what's in it for us is we'll have a much greater impact on the well-being of North Carolina citizens if we provide good customer service and they come to us for everything they need that we can provide. We'll find out that North Carolina citizens and funders recognize and appreciate extension as a must-have resource. You know, we're just an option in counties and we're an option in the state budget. But if we become so important they feel like it's a must-have, it'll really secure our future. We can also better serve our current customer base while expanding that base and maybe moving into other areas such as urban areas and gain more legislative support that way. We also just want to make sure our outcomes are impactful, remarkable, and envied. And then lastly, we individually all want to help people, and we get to expand the impact of what we do as individuals if we have better customer service. Now, as far as our vision with great customer service is to have a great work environment, a much better work environment than we have now, because we're not talking about customer service with just outside customers. We're all customers of each other. Agents are customers of specialists. You know, your county director, you're a customer of them, they're a customer of you, and if we all provide good service to each other, it's going to be a much better work environment. We also look for new funding opportunities with great customer service. We know that legislators hear about how well we do, and believe me, we know that it only takes one bad customer service issue to make somebody angry, and it can take an awful lot of good work to overcome that. We know that we get a better opportunity with state and local grants. We've seen some of that recently with the Golden Leaf grant that we've gotten. And then we get better county support by providing better customer service. In today's society, people expect great customer service, and it's what can separate us from other information providers. All of this great customer service will lead to an expansion of our impacts to traditional customers and also to some of our newest customers. We'll be able to get new tools and new programs for traditional and new customers. And lastly, there's a good chance we could increase parts of our extension workforce and then be able to do so much more work that we all know is so important and needed in North Carolina. Thank you.